For all the uproar over Roseanne's racist tweet, the media have been far more restrained over another outrage. Samantha Bee, the host of Full Frontal on TBS, went off on the president's daughter, as you know, for the sin of posting a picture with her child with the worst word in the English language that you can use against a woman.
You know, Ivanka, that's a beautiful photo of you and your child, but let me just say, one mother to another, do something about your dad's immigration practices, you feckless. He listens to you. Put on something tight and low cut and tell your father to stop it.
After the White House denounced her, Bee said this on Twitter: "I'd like to sincerely apologize to Ivanka Trump and to my viewers for using an expletive on my show to describe her last night. It was inappropriate and inexcusable. I crossed a line and I deeply regret it." Joining us now, Emily Jashinsky, commentary writer for the Washington Examiner, and Richard Fowler, a radio talk show host and Fox News contributor. Emily, until the White House denounced Sam Bee's language as vicious and vile, I read all the media reports on this. They were all like, wow, did you see what Sam said? Not reaching the Roseanne level of outrage until maybe later.
Some of the initial media reports were almost like, in some of the liberal outlets, were almost applauding her, like, oh, this is kind of funny. And so that was really interesting. And I actually don't think, I'm glad you played the second part of that clip, because most people stopped it after she used that word. Yes. And it goes on to get, I mean, I think also very inappropriate. And so what's interesting about all of this is I don't think Samantha Bee would have ever had to apologize. I don't think we would still be talking about this. I certainly don't think she would have had the will to apologize if it hadn't happened in such proximity to the Roseanne Barr incident.
Which actually makes it all the more, I guess stupid would be the right word, to do that and do it in a pre-taped segment. And by the way, you know, they were initially proud of it. The executive producer, Miles Kahn, wrote, "So, feckless C word seems to be trending." Now, some others have denounced it, CNN, Brooke Baldwin, and others, but do you think she would still be employed if she had used that awful word against, I don't know, Michelle Obama?
Well, I mean, I think the word is vile, right? Let's start there. And I think what makes it even more interesting is I think you're right, Howard, in that the only reason why we're having this conversation about Samantha Bee is because it happens so close to Roseanne, which has allowed conservatives to point to this double standard. But I don't think you can conflate the two cases. And the Roseanne case in particular, and if you talk to folks at ABC, they would tell you that Roseanne, not only does she have a history of bad behavior, but since getting the show, she has been warned about her behavior over and over and over again. So this is like sort of the third strike for Roseanne, which allowed them to say, you're out the door. In Samantha Bee's situation, is her language vile? Absolutely. But the case is different here because we don't know what is happening between her and the TBS executives. But is it vile? Is it wrong? Is there a double standard that the conservatives can point to? I think there might be here.
I agree that they're different. But I also think that lets Samantha Bee off the hook. And especially you pointed to the second part where she says, put on something tight and low cut and tell your father to change his effing immigration policy. That is the same low blow that Bill Maher did a few while back about joking about an incestuous relationship. And somehow, like, it's okay to do that to the president's daughter? Yeah,
actually, none of this was a dramatic departure from the way a lot of liberals in the media talk about the relationship between Ivanka and Donald Trump. And so I do think that these are not apples to apples. I think what Roseanne said absolutely was worse. But in the same way, they are different because what Samantha Bee said went through layers of bureaucracy. It was written down. It was very much premeditated, which makes it very different in another way as well.
All right. Let me move on to the case of Joy Reid, MSNBC weekend host, and she had already apologized for some decade-old posts on her blog that were very, very homophobic. I mean, really offensively homophobic. And now she's apologized again, among other things. She seems to have been years ago a 9/11 truther. She was promoting an Alex Jones film, charging that the 9/11 attacks were carried out by the U.S. government. Richard?
I mean, I think the blog post is pretty insane. Here's my thought on this particular case. I do believe that everybody has a past, and everybody's past is murky, depending upon how you spin it or how you look at it. I do believe that Joy should have a chance to explain herself, but I do think that the rope here is running a little short, and she's running out of rope, and so I think she's got to explain herself pretty quickly to the American
But on that point, she did again apologize online, but said nothing on her show yesterday about this. She certainly had that platform, and let's put up a picture that she had posted. It was a Photoshop thing involving John McCain, sort of grafted onto the Virginia Tech shooter. And so MSNBC says in a statement, well, some of this is hateful, but she's grown and evolved. no real accountability. I mean, it's a long time ago, but there's so much of it, Emily.
Yes. And at first, I was willing to give her the benefit of the doubt and say, you have evolved. We should absolutely have room for that. It's been more than 10 years in some of these cases, but it's turned out to be so much. And the worst part, and what I cannot wrap my head around, is the fact that she pretty much clearly fabricated a cover-up story about hackers, and she's supposed to be a journalist, and MSNBC is running ads touting her as one of their stars, one of their star journalists, and still hasn't gotten around that.
You would probably say that if somebody had said half of this stuff who worked for a conservative news organization, there would be a far bigger uproar than there's been about Joy Reid.
Well, let me say this from a broader context. I think we're currently living in a society where it's become so tit for tat that is like everybody deserves. It's like almost like Oprah, but instead of like handing out cards or handing out red slips, like you get fired, everybody gets fired.
Well, there's a lot of bad stuff going on in the culture.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think we've got to at some point in our country and in our culture, we've got to come to this point of reckoning that says what's fireable and what's not fireable, because now it's become on the left and on the right. It's you're fired. We want somebody fired, and everybody's getting fired.
It's sort of up
we're not really sure why.
To the news organization involved. But when President Trump says Disney has a double standard because it did fire Roseanne on its ABC unit, ESPN, which is owned by Disney, took no action against Jamel Hill, a sportscaster, when she called Donald Trump a white supremacist. And then Keith Olbermann has just been given an expanded role on ESPN. Here is just some of what he has said about the president.
Trump is indeed effing crazy. As mindless and as evil as the baboon's policy is, it can and will be rolled back sooner or later. Congenital disease, drug use, any of a dozen post-concussion traumas, Alzheimer's, senility.
Now, Olbermann didn't say this on ESPN, but that's okay with Bob Iger, and Olbermann gets a bigger role on the sports network?
Yeah, and I mean, I agree with this larger point about partisan bloodthirst and the tit-for-tat battle. I definitely agree with that. But if what Joy Reid has done is not, when we're trying to find this line as to what's fireable, if that's not fireable, what is? I mean.
But Olbermann, who used to command a big audience on MSNBC, he's called Trump a Nazi and a traitor, and it doesn't seem to hurt his career.
Well, I mean, listen, I think Keith Olbermann is problematic. I think that language is problematic. But I really feel as though, and going back to my previous point, is we as a country have to figure out, one, we've got to bring civility back. I think it's somewhere in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean right now.
All right, I'm good on that. But you can't impose a standard because every media organization has to search its conscience.
Absolutely.
When a star does this.
And how are we supposed to get back to civility when Samantha Bee is getting awards for advancing social causes? I mean, she got an award the other night, and she accepted it for advancing.
I think she's sorry for the word, but I don't think she's sorry for the sentiment involved, and I think that's troubling. Great discussion. Richard Fowler, Emily Jashinsky. There's a lot more reporting on pundits and comedians sliming Ivanka, by the way. My book, Media Madness, Donald Trump, the Press, and the War Over the Truth. I really go into it.
It's time for Friday Follies. Is that really Follies?
The Follies looks a little beaten
drab.
up. A little beaten up.
But that's okay, because we begin tonight with a serious subject. It shows why Samantha Bee's apology for her obscene insult of Ivanka Trump now seems fake. You're not going to believe what she said last night behind closed doors. Here's what she said. The New York Times bestselling author and Fox News contributor Raymond Arroyo is going to tell us. Raymond, this was a television awards ceremony. What great timing.
Yeah, this is from the Television Academy, that grants the Emmys. They gave Samantha a special award, Samantha Bee, for her social activism, lifting society. Now, remember, this is the woman who told Ivanka Trump, you're a feckless C-word, and you should wear something tight and low-cut so your father will change his immigration policies. She had to apologize for that. But at this ceremony, which the media was not allowed into, she said this. We don't have the audio, but we have a transcript. Here's what she said. We spent the day wrestling with the repercussions of one bad word when we all should have spent the day incensed that as a nation we are wrenching children from their parents. Now, it wasn't one word. It was also the context that somehow Ivanka Trump should tart up to get her father's attention. That was never addressed at all, either in the apology or here. TBS is standing by.
She didn't like the fact that Ivanka Trump was actually holding up her infant son. Like, that was an affront to Samantha Bee. She's trashed me for wearing my cross. Let me hold it out for her, because it actually works against vampires. Hi, Samantha.
Maybe we can play that clip.
Yeah, she's trashed me for that. Actually, do we want to play the clip just for fun?
Go ahead, play that clip.
It is the front.
This is from
we
2016.
we floated it. That's all right. Well, we didn't want to give it the light of day.
Okay.
But so she continues to be present, claiming she's sorry. She wants to move it on to political conversation. Who died and made her head of Amnesty International?
The problem with this is it's misogynistic. She claims to be a feminist, and here she is calling a woman, reducing a woman to her genitalia with this horrible word. And it seems the network, TBS, is standing by her. Now, the president has started tweeting. Naturally, his daughter was attacked here. Here's what he said. Why aren't they firing no talent Samantha Bee for the horrible language used on her low ratings show? A total double standard. But that's okay. We're winning. And we'll be doing so for a long time to come.
I like how winning is capitalized.
Well, he wants to let you know he's winning.
Not clear why, but I'll take it.
Okay.
It's capitalized.
Now, Brian Stelter on CNN has jumped into this, and he claims the president has gone too far.
Let's watch.
It seems, Brian, like the president's following a lot of conservative pundits who are jumping on this double standard bandwagon.
Yes, he absolutely is. He's tapping into a very potent strain of grievance politics, something that we hear almost every day on the president's favorite Fox News talk shows. He's tapping into the idea of conservative victimhood, that conservatives are treated in a worse way than liberals. In this case, Roseanne Barr treated worse than Samantha Bee.
They make it seem as if the president is somehow to blame for foul-mouthed comedians.
Yeah, it's his fault.
Believe me. There were foul-mouthed comedians, nasty people saying horrible things before Trump. They will exist after Trump. The president did take her bait a little bit here. Remember, Samantha Bee's ratings are down by almost half.
Why are we responding to Samantha Bee? He's winning on the economy. He's winning on trade. The economy is flying. Focus on the substance. Who cares about it?
But can he match Obama's The Final Year, an HBO documentary that, like a West Wing, like an extended West Wing, portrayed the national security apparatus, John Kerry, Samantha Powers, and Ben Rhodes as heroes? Here's a little clip of that documentary.
Let's watch.
We got to make sure it'll be harder to dismantle in the event that we take a different turn.
I just came outside to try to process all this. It's a lot to process. I can't put it into words. I don't know what the words are.
Ben Rhodes can't find the words. That's after Hillary's defeat. They all thought Hillary was going to win, and you see that in the documentary. The Boston Globe wrote, this team's professionalism, empathy, pragmatic idealism are enough to make you weep with all that has gone missing.
Now, what I focused on is Samantha Powers, who was unmasking individuals every day somehow over at the UN. She said we have to make it harder to dismantle, meaning the foreign policy apparatus. Iran deal gone. What else?
Climate change
gone.
dead.
TPP
and Cuba. Those are the three benchmark things that they celebrate in this documentary. On a day when Donald Trump has brought North Korea to the White House, this is a hard documentary to swallow. How time has devoured what was supposed to be the ultimate narrative.
I would love to have
era.
been sitting next to Ben Rhodes on the sidewalk. I can't speak. I've got to take a moment.
Well, I'm going to take a moment now.
All right.
So what do people really think of Samantha Bee's hateful comments? Take a look at tonight's Street Justice.
All right, so here I am in Manhattan trying to figure out what New Yorkers think of what Samantha Bee said about President Trump's daughter, Ivanka. So Samantha Bee calls President Trump's daughter, Ivanka, a feckless C word that most people have never even said. But she still has her show. Should she be able to keep her show?
Well, I don't think she'd get much support for using language like that. I wouldn't watch it.
So if that were said against a Democrat president's daughter like Chelsea Clinton.
Don't forget it, the world would be in uproar.
Okay, and she would lose her show.
Absolutely. Yes.
Okay. If Roseanne Barr lost her show, what should happen to Samantha Bee?
I think she has the right to say what she wants to say, but I think it's better for people to not pay any attention.
I definitely believe in the First Amendment. She has the right to say something,
right?
But she should be held accountable the same way Roseanne had the right to say something, should be held accountable.
Well, that was personal. It wasn't racial.
It was misogynistic. Woman-hating.
But a woman said it.
That doesn't make it any less misogynistic.
I didn't say it did.
Is there a difference between the way they treat liberals and the way they treat Republicans?
Oh, yeah. I think there's a double standard across the board.
it's kind of not just Democratic and Republican, but it kind of, a lot of people are hypocritic. They'll say one thing and do another.
So Samantha Bee says something terrible about President Trump's daughter. She calls her a feckless C word. I can't even say the word.
She should be fired also then, right?
But she's not being fired.
Why is that? Fair is fair.
I really believe it's not appropriate to say that kind of things in front of television, in public. You can think something, but I think to keep it for yourself and not for the big audience.
Huh? Well, what should happen to you? What should happen? I love you too! But what about Samantha Bee? Should she lose her job?